How It Ends by Laura Weiss. I would not willingly peel back the scar tissue protecting the deepest chambers of my heart and reveal that bruised hollows pooled with the blood of old wounds. The terror comes just thinking about it, but now, facing darkness, I am left with no choice. I love you, and because of that, I am going to try and raise the dead. Louise Bell Clausen, How It Ends. The beginning of the end, and they all lived happily ever after. It happened painfully and without warning, this sudden turning of the heart. It happened as you stood so small and stoic beside me in the driveway, waving as your mother pulled away in her car, and then your father in his, your thin, sun-browned shoulders squared, your chin up, your dark gaze riveted to their leaving, oblivious to the clean morning breeze, to the shy Sarepta, the youngest of the strays, meowing and twining round your bare ankles, and the glittering pink and gold beads of your new Princess Barbie bracelet rattling a hollow farewell. Your wave never faltered, Hannah, not even after those cars disappeared around the wooden bend and left you behind, watching and waiting as if certain steadfast devotion in your farewell would somehow guarantee their return. But it didn't, it couldn't, and the road remained deserted. Each empty passing second wilting and finally stilting your faithful fluttering hand. "Well," I said briskly, picking up your Princess Jasmine overnight bag, "I think it's time for some chocolate chip pancakes. What do you say?" "My stomach hurts," you mumbled, fingering your sparkly bracelet. "It'll feel much better with pancakes in it," I said. "Grandma Helen?" You looked up, chin quivering and doe eyes stricken with tears. "This is not a good happily ever after. I'm too sad." It was then, Hannah, as I gazed into your forlorn little 5-year-old face, that fierce longing surged and, catching me off guard, wrenched free. You sidled close and touched my hand. "Are you going away too?" "Oh, sweetheart, no," I said. And in that heartbeat the bond was formed, the promise made, and the emptiness inside of me was filled with a rush to comfort and protect, to earn this trust you put in me. Me, no blood relation. The Grandma Helen, a courtesy title given by your parents to the childless lady in the neighboring farmhouse, with a passion for books, stray cats, and hungry deer, who fed the birds, and had shoulders strong enough for a little girl's piggyback rides. No, Hannah, wild horses wouldn't drag me away. You sniffled. "I don't know what that means." "It means you couldn't get rid of me if you tried," I said, gently swinging your hand. "Come on, let's go find some breakfast." I led you across the thick grass still glistening with dew, under the smooth gray branches of the copper beech tree, and into the little strip of woods that signaled the end of your property and the beginning of mine. "I think I might like pancakes," you offered, flip-flops slapping as you padded along the smooth pine-needle carpet, Serapis swatting playfully at your heels. "Hey, when we get to the meadow, can we take the deer path past the pond?" "Absolutely," I said, and paused to lift you over a fallen hemlock. "Look," you said, eyeing a good-sized hole in the mossy, crumbling trunk, "a lion might live there. Or a skunk, or a raccoon. They're wild, so don't ever try to pet them, but they won't hurt you if you let them be." "Live and let live, Hannah." I took your hand, leading you out of the tree line and into the meadow, on one deer path coming up. It was almost too painful, the giddy joy at staring the everyday miracles in my world, and the solemn way you soaked it all up as we stopped to consider the zigzag flight of an iridescent dragonfly, the chirp of a startled chipmunk, and the hoofprint pressed to the mud at the edge of the pond. "Do wild horses take the deer path too?" you said, pulling free and crouching to study the honeybees buzzing over the great drifts of violets and white clover. "Not anymore," I said. "They might have, though, a long, long time ago." "Back when you were a little girl," you said, shading your eyes and squinting up at me. "It's possible," I said, lips twitching. "Oh," you paused a minute, absently patting the cat, then picked 3 violets. "You know what, Grandma Helen, I think when you were little and your mommy and daddy went away and left you, you were sad and cried, and they came back and made pancakes with lots of syrup, and you all lived happily ever after again, right?" It was then, with a crown of sunlight shimmering in your silky brown hair, the hawk circling high overhead, and your hand reaching up to offer me the tiny bouquet, that I said, "Right," and told you the first of so many terrible lies. You practically lived with us that summer while your parents, struggling, bewildered, and unhappy, tried to figure out why the life they'd planned wasn't the one they'd ended up with. It was very peaceful here then. Lon and I hadn't yet sold that section of the acreage on the other side to that liar who said he loved the country, and then once he owned the property, tried to destroy every living thing on it, so this stretch of road was just my house and yours, meadows and woods. Sound carried far in the darkness, Hannah, and in the daylight too, so when bitter disappointment got the best of your parents and echoed out over the clearing, I would find some reason to call and invite you over just to get you out of the battle zone. I have to give them credit for catching on quickly and trying to spare you the worst of it, though, because after my first few phone calls, The roles reversed, and more often than not, it would be your mother calling and asking if you would visit me for a while. I always said yes, of course, because I could hear how much it cost her to ask, but even more that the sight of your trudging through the field grass toward my back door, whether you were smiling or stuffing your pockets with acorns or plodding along like you didn't have a friend in the world, filled my heart like nothing else. I would grab some fruit cookies and hurry down the deer path to meet you, Sarepta and my number of other strays following along. The moment you saw me, your face would light up, and I would smile and wave that, 'cause truly, is there anything as wonderful as feeling safe and loved? I gave that to you, Hannah, but make no mistake, you gave it to me too. We would never meet under the big old catalpa tree by the pond. We would meet under the big old catalpa tree by the pond, and if you were especially blue, would sit side by side the old wooden bench in the flickering shade of those huge heart-shaped leaves. Sooner or later, I waited long enough, you would reveal yourself in questions. More often, though, you would ask me to tell you stories about when I was a little girl. The first time you did this, I panicked and immediately let go of your hand. You didn't notice my shocked withdrawal. You were too busy rattling the knob of the door I had sealed shut years ago, asking if I was always good, or if I ever got into trouble, how I got punished, if I'd had my own bedroom, lots of friends to play with, and if I hated peas just like you did. Your bright chatter gave me time to recover, to breathe deep, and force myself to stop and think instead of turn and hurry away. That was the closest I ever came to leaving you, and I would have if I was still on your babysitter. Would have made some excuse to your parents about aching bones or being too busy to watch you, and disappeared from your life. But I wasn't just Miss Schoenmaker anymore. I was your Grandma Helen, and there was a price to pay for keeping that title. So while I could never tell you the truth, the more I listened, the more I realized I didn't have to. You weren't probing for secrets or judging me. No, all you wanted were happily ever after tales to blunt the sharp edges of your own uncertain days, so I ove you stories of an idyllic childhood with stern but kind parents and loyal, mischievous best friends, of getting into trouble in the crafty ways we wiggled out of it. You never got into trouble, you said, wide-eyed. Well, maybe sometimes, but if you look hard enough, there's always a way to get out of it or around it. I stopped and you begged for more, held out your cupped hands, and so I obliged, filling them with sunny days romping at my grandparents' farm, climbing trees and saving baby animals, or of the fun I'd had in school, glorious families' Thanksgivings, fuzzy little tuxedo kittens in my stocking on Christmas morning. I told these lies. You soaked up every word, eyes glowing and face rapt as if you were there too, as if we were equal in age and embarking on some merry adventures together. My house became your second home, and even after your parents reconciled and you didn't need to be sent to me anymore, you still came regularly because you wanted to, because I made sure there was always something fun to do or read or talk about, something good to eat, interesting questions to ask, and satisfying answers to find, and of course we had our adventures. We sat like statues on a bench under the catalpa one June day and watched a new fawn, dainty and curious, saunter to within 6 feet of us. She paused, her wide black velvet eyes unblinking, ears high, nostrils twitching, gauging our presence, and then, fluffy white tail waving, turned and danced away. You stared after her in awe and said, I never saw a real fawn close up before. A wild one, I mean. Beautiful, wasn't she? I said. Wow, you breathed. We spent your 10th birthday eating egg rolls and combing yard sales in pursuit of some elusive, unidentified treasure, and it wasn't until late in the day we stumbled upon the item you had been secretly searching for, a chair of your own for my living room. The one you wanted was a vintage, wide, sturdy, overstuffed monstrosity in an unsettling currant and forest-colored tweed, and didn't match anything I owned, but you loved the brass nail beds pounded in along the arms and plush 6-inch fringe along the bottom, so we jammed it halfway into the trunk of my car and drove home at a crawl. Lon almost popped a disc hauling it up the porch steps, and we had to take the front door off its hinges just to get the thing inside, but it fit perfectly opposite my reading chair by the window, creating a cozy little nook with a view past the bird feeders to the pond, and became Sarepta's favorite new ambush spot. When you were 13, we went grocery shopping, and the object of your crush, a cocky teenage produce boy with bleached hair and a pierced tongue, was there. He was tending the root crops, unloading onions, neatening turnips, stacking bags of potatoes, so I sent you over to pick out 3 nice yams. Yams, you whispered, as appalled as if I'd said extra-large tampons, but the lure of him was too strong, so off you went, blushing in agony. Arms folded across your chest, walking too fast, eyes too bright, lost in the exquisite torment of feeling too tall, too stupid, too hopeful, and too embarrassed to be with an old lady, hating your outfit, your hair, and the squeegee squeak of your boots made crossing the polished floor. You couldn't bring yourself to look at him, not even when he shifted to make room for you, only snatched 3 enormous yams from the middle of the pile, causing the tubers at the peak to descend in a tumble and scatter across the floor. You froze, mortified. Nice going, Ace, the kid drawled. Any more like you at home?" Your eyes filled with tears. "Great," he muttered, setting aside a crate of onions. "They don't pay me enough for this kind of crap." He dropped on all fours, groping under the display for the errant tubers and giving you the chance to rush back to me, throw the yams in the cart, and run out the car. I wanted to slap him for his careless cruelty, to ask him if it really would have cost so much to smile at a child with such stars in her eyes, but I didn't, of course. Instead, I discovered that you were mad at me that day, me and those stupid yams for making you look foolish. I tried to explain the idea of keeping your composure even when you were embarrassed, so no one would ever know how you felt small or vulnerable, but you were either too young to get it or too busy replaying the tragic humiliation to listen, because your thundercloud expression never lightened, so I swallowed my hurt and resorted to a stop at Rita's Italian iceberg coconut gelatos. By the time we were done eating, most of the storm had passed and the sun showed signs of peeking through again. When you were 15 and not coming around to visit as often, I unearthed my old red bicycle from the cobwebby corner of the barn and huffing, puffing, wobbling, ringing the old tink-ching bell on the handlebars and wearing a violet purple scarf, mirrored shades in my yellow winter hat and the ridiculous crocheted daisy ear flaps, warbling Dear Prudence and looking like the village idiot, I rode in circles around your house until you staggered out the front door, weak with laughter, and begged me to stop before anyone saw me. "Not until you go for a ride with me," I called, and then oof, as a vicious rut sent me jouncing over a rock, and you into fresh gales of laughter. "Har, har, what a wretched child you are! Come on, where's your adventurous spirit? Are you really going to let me have all the fun?" You started down the steps, eyes sparkling in the crisp breeze, stirring your long hair, and then stopped, biting your lip as if suddenly remembered having fun wasn't all that simple anymore. And as you hesitated on that threshold, Hannah, time shivered, and for a moment you were no longer a confused adolescent still wearing a granddaughter's smudged and rosy glasses, but a tall, beautiful young woman whose naked gaze welled with tears as the cold autumn wind tore the brittle, heart-shaped leaves from the catalpa, and I gripped the handlebars, silent, paralyzed, and unable to wave as the rattling bicycle carried me past. We never went for that ride together, or any other, and we never spoke of why not, but something important had changed, and for the first time in years I remembered what it was like to be lonely. And that heart, which was a wild garden, was given to him who loved only trim lawns. And the imbecile carried the princess into slavery. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. Chapter 1. Hannah. This is not exactly the exciting new high school experience I had in mind. I'm a month into St. Ignatius, a regional parochial school 9 miles from home, and I still don't know what I'm doing, where I'm going, or how I'm supposed to be. Plus, this is the ugliest uniform in the world, it's true. I would like to know what girl-hating hag cursed us with knee-length brown plaid polyester skirts, long sleeveless vests, and baggy yellow polyester blouses. I wish Crystal's parents had transferred her here too, instead of keeping her in public school. Then we could be miserable together. Oh, and I definitely need new shoes, mine or loser wear. Sigh. I'd still rather be here with 500 new kids, though, and stuck with nobody but the same boring clicked-out crew from junior high. They move in huddled masses just like they did in 9th grade, and seeing that makes me feel like some kind of intrepid pioneer striking out on my own. Hannah's big adventure. It's scary, but I kind of like it. Cue Grandma Helen's voice. Back straight, stand tall, look 'em in the eye, smile, never let 'em see you sweat. Cue my voice. Be brave, Hannah. School would be a lot easier if I had a partner in crime. I miss Crystal. I've done some research and found that most of the older girls' uniforms are way shorter and tighter than mine. I asked someone about it, and she said that because everyone hems them up and takes them in, they wear killer heels and black pantyhose too, all against the rules, but most of the nuns are old and slow, so even if one tries to snag you on a dress code violation, you can usually outrun her before she IDs you. Turns out only us lame sophomores wear long, baggy uniforms. Time to convince Gran to do a serious overhaul on this hideous skirt. Well, it took whining, pleading, and begging, but she's hemming my skirt, even though my father said he didn't spend $300 on a uniform to see it turned into something too small to wear to the beach. I said everybody wears them that way, and he said, of course, come on, Hannah, if everybody else jumped off the Brooklyn Bridge. He is so tiresome sometimes. My mother laughed and told him he was just history repeating himself because she'd gone to parochial school too, and had a uniform just ugly. And she'd always rolled her skirt up at the waist because feeling ugly was no way to spend your whole high school career. My father just looked at her and shook his head like she was hopeless. She laughed again and tickled in passing. He told her to quit it, but I could tell she was trying not to smile. I love it when everybody's happy. OMG, I'm in love. Seth Kobylius. I must have him. He's a junior. Beautiful. Sexy. Sweet. I found out that Bailey, the girl he really loved last year, Broke his heart, so now supposedly parties hard and goes out with a lot of different girls because he was too hurt and doesn't want to be again. He plays guitar too and hangs out in the courtyard. I need to make the courtyard my new hangout ASAP. I never felt anything like this before. I love his eyes and his smile and his hair and just everything. He's really tall, blonde, and a little skinny, but it looks perfect on him. It even makes a uniform jacket and tie look hot. He hasn't noticed me yet, but I can change that. I just know it. Good thing Gran Helen hemmed this uniform. Now at least when he does look at me, he'll be able to tell I'm a girl. Also, I hung out with another sophomore named Sammy Holloway, who I think might be my next partner in crime. We're pretty different. She's thinner, flatter, richer, sleeker than me, and next to her I feel like nothing but flyaway hair, frayed edges, and loose ends. She cracks me up bad, and so far I like her a lot. I think we could have great adventures together. Life is very exciting these days. I took too many classes. I have to stop. I have to drop some right now. They're interfering with my chance to meet Seth. The days are rushing by, and I'm not getting anywhere because of all these stupid classes. I tried to dump algebra and physical science, but Mr. Sung and guidance won't let me. So maybe journalism and what? There's nothing else I can get rid of. I don't mind dumping journalism. It's all about facts, so who needs facts when imagining what could happen is so much more satisfying. I kept creative writing but dropped journalism, so now I have an extra free period, and I just found out that for some reason my name isn't on the sophomore mandatory community service list. Yay! I probably should be worried about this, but I'm not, and I'm sure not bringing it up. I could use the time for my Seth quest. I'll just make it up next year or something. I love a good computer glitch. My parents went on a date last night, which kind of freaked me out because the last time they did that was like 2 years ago, and right after they argued about growing apart, so I went down to Crystal's. We passed the time hanging out with her older brother and his friends. They were full of compliments, and I didn't like Seth so much. I probably would have found myself a boyfriend. I hope he appreciates this sacrifice. OMG, Seth noticed me today for real, and it was good. No, better than good. Great. I was caught in a stream of kids changing classes, flowing down the right side of the hall, and there he was, heading toward me, in the stream on the left side, ambling along, head and shoulders above the crowd, laughing at something somebody had said, and kind of scanning oncoming traffic as he walked. I looked at him right as he looked at me, and I swear time stopped. He held my gaze for like a full 3 seconds and smiled their sweet little sideways smile, and lifted his chin in a high. I smiled back, and then we passed, and he didn't break the connection until he was almost past me. He saw me out of all the hundreds of other people in that hall. It was me that he smiled at. Me. These teachers take their classes way too seriously. I mean, I'm 15. I have like another 70 years to worry about zygotes and circumferences or whatever. I wish I could just learn what I'm interested in, which would be creative writing, psychology, and nature stuff, and not biology. I don't want to hack open dead animals. I want to study them alive and healthy. If I ever have to take biology, I'm boycotting carving up dead things. And too bad about the grade. If anybody makes me do it, I'll just throw up on purpose every single day, all over the lab until they let me out. I don't care. I will not mangle dead animals. Gran won't mind. Heck, she'll probably give me a medal. Cue Gran's voice. No, Hannah, we don't kill spiders. They're the perfect natural insect control. Careful, you almost stepped on that beetle. Look, the spring fawns are out frolicking on the lawn. Yes, she actually uses words like frolicking. She's so embarrassing sometimes. I would never tell her that, though. It would hurt her feelings too badly. Actually, I better call her soon or else her and Grandpa will show up at school or something, just to make sure I'm still alive. Anyway, what I really need is less classes and more free time. How else am I supposed to develop a sociable, well-rounded human being if I never have the time to get my hands on Seth? Sammy's doing trash pickup along the roads with a bunch of other kids for her community service, and yesterday some lady in a Lexus stopped and asked if they were from a juvenile detention center because usually only prisoners from the county jail pick up garbage, but they wear orange jumpsuits so everyone knows they're prisoners out on the work detail. Sammy, being tired, discussing with the smart, said they usually wore brown plaid uniforms and wouldn't get released unless they completed their mandatory service too. The lady looked righteous and said, "Well, I don't know what you did to get in this situation, but I certainly hoped you've learned your lesson," and drove away. Sammy said it was funny, but also pretty humiliating, and next year she's just going to stuff envelopes or something instead. God, I'm glad I escaped this. I've been sitting out on the curb of the courtyard in my free time, pretending to read or page through my books. But really, watching Seth from beneath my hair and trying my hardest to will him to come over and fall in love with me. So far it isn't working. I am learning him, though, by watching and listening, and sooner or later that's got to be worth something. I've already discovered that he smokes Marlboros, loves South Park, and is a killer flirt when he's high. He also seems to be addicted to BE girls with long nails and ankle bracelets, and cool you can't touch his smiles, which is kind of depressing. Hey, Sammy said, plopping down on the curb beside me. Anything good going on? You know who likes ankle bracelets, I said glumly. So, I hate ankle bracelets, I said. I like them, she said, leaning back on her hands and turning her face to the sun. I think they're hot. I don't, I said. They remind me of shackles. She snorted, amused. Oh, come on, Hannah. You can't tell me that if we walked up to you and said you'd look hot wearing an ankle bracelet, you wouldn't go right out and get one. No, I said, irritated, and then, you're a pain in the butt. You know that? I love you too, she said, smirking and bumping her shoulder against mine. Chapter 2. Helen. It's pretty quiet around here these days, Lon says, pulling up a chair at the kitchen table and easing down into it. He's been outside cleaning the gutters, and his arrival carries the mingled scents of hand soap, damp soil, cold, matted greenery. I say, and ladle him out a big bowl of vegetable beef soup from the pot simmering on the stove. I set the bowl in front of him, and ignoring his searching look, head for the pantry to see if the last of the summer tomatoes have ripened yet. Heard from Hannah? Not since I hemmed up her uniform, I say without turning. That was back in September, he says. Was it? I say lightly, as if I wasn't aware of every single empty second. Well, I imagine homework and such is keeping her busy. She'll visit when she gets a chance. I wait, but the other than a quiet exhale, Lon is kind enough to not take it any further, as he knows it will only make me feel worse than I already do. Most days I deal with Hannah's absence by trying to keep busy. Baking muffins, feeding the birds, enclosing the porch in cleared heavy-duty plastic, setting up the heat lamps, and readying the stray cat condos for winter, raking leaves, and stapling new private property no hunting signs on the trees along the wood line. When those tasks fail to distract me, I remind myself that it's normal for her to want to socialize with new friends rather than spend all her free time dancing at attendance on an old one. It's a bitter pill, though, and that doesn't go down so well. So I've taken to calling Melanie Thury, Hannah's mom, once or twice a week just to chat. Aren't you going to eat? Lon says. In a minute, I say, holding the pantry door frame and stepping carefully down into the chilly darkness. My soup's getting cold, he says, and start without me. I reach up and finding the full pull cord, yank on the light. The bare overhead bulb isn't fancy, but it does the job, revealing rows and rows of wooden shelves stocked with cabbages, buckets of carrots and sand, yams, potatoes, kale, garlic, and onion braids. And of course the tomatoes. At the end of the season, some gardeners pull the entire tomato plant from the ground and hang it upside down to let the green tomatoes ripen on the vine. I've never taken this shortcut, as I figure no matter how well you shake the roots, there will always be dirt and bugs left clinging and brought inside. My way takes longer, but I'd rather go plant by plant, fruit by fruit, examining each for bite marks or spoilage, filling my buckets, and then carefully lining each tomato up on the pantry shelf beneath the sheets of newspaper so they can ripen at their own speed. I lit the first sheet of newspaper. It rattles, and I realize my hands are trembling again. This has been happening more and more lately, and I don't know whether it's low blood sugar or just old age smirking at me from around a shadowy corner, but I have no intention of letting it win, so after I eat I'm going to do more reading through my natural home remedy books for causes and cures. Hey, Helen, I'll make you a deal, Lon calls. If you bring me back one of those big, juicy beefsteaks, I might be persuaded to split it with you. It's his tone, teasing and tinged with the memory of a younger man's mischief, that coaxes the first smile of the day. Oh, really? I abandoned the small Rutgers tomato I was considering, and moved farther down the shelf to where the massive beefsteaks lie. Will I have to do anything R-rated to seal this deal? No, Lon says, sounding startled. Then forget it, I say, and at his snort of laughter, pick the biggest, ripest tomato we have, hide my trembling hand in my apron, and head slowly up out of the darkness and back into the bright, cozy kitchen.